In San Francisco, were the elevators all living communally?
And they were staying at motels mostly.
No, what was that like, all living together like that?
Motels and hotels. And usually, well, when I was in San Francisco with them, and that was during a tour that went all over California. We went to Chico, we went to Merced, we went to every little town imaginable. And then we also went to Los Angeles because they had 2 shows on the Dick Clark show. So we were also down in Los Angeles. And the way we would work it is all the elevators would share a room except for me and Tommy. Tommy and I, of course, would have our own motel room. And at one point during that stay, Tommy said, look, we need an apartment in San Francisco. Wherever the guys stay, that's fine. They're just bachelors and it's all right. But you and I need to have a home. So we got an apartment unknowingly in one of the most dangerous drug areas in the whole Bay Area.
And where was that?
Corner of Fillmore and McAllister.
Oh, yes, yes.
Where people were shooting up right on the street.
Mm-hmm. It still is.
When I went down to the liquor store that we were living above, they said, you can't live in this neighborhood. I said, yes, I do. And they said, well, you look too healthy. You can't possibly live in this neighborhood. It was really dangerous neighborhood. And after we'd been there just a few days, the riots broke out. So you couldn't go out your door without having people sitting on their stoops with baseball bats to hit you in the shins as you went by. It was real awful. It was dangerous. One night when Tommy was coming home from a gig somewhere, right by the liquor store, just about to go up the stairs to our apartment, this guy yanks him and holds a knife to his throat and demands his money. Now, Tommy was so sublimely certain of his place in the universe. I've never met anybody like him. He had almost no fear of anything. And Tommy was carrying several $1,000s and didn't give the guy the money. He pointed up above the liquor store and said, hey, man, I live up there. If I had any money, would I be living up there? But the way he pointed, he sort of pulled the guy out of the alleyway that the guy was trying to pull him into. And then the guy released him and he took off. So he came in with all that money and didn't have his throat cut. I cannot imagine anyone else who could be so certain that they could bluff their way out of except Rocky. Rocky was that way too. Rocky could bluff, and I have to tell you about a thing that happened one time because Rocky was so wonderful at bluffing. We're pulled over by the police. I've got Rocky and Stacy and Tommy in the car and myself. And the policeman gets in the back seat, gets us all out of the car. Then he gets in the back seat with Rocky. He leaves Rocky in the back seat. It was in some country-type place. No, San Francisco would never have done this to us. But they saw long hairs and they wanted us out because long hairs were responsible for turning all the youth into drugs and stuff like that. Anyway, and this is what the officer was saying, and he was sitting in the back seat with Rocky, and I slowly sat down in the front seat of the car so that I could see what was going on because I was concerned about Rocky. In Texas, he might get beaten up. Anyway, the officer at one point says, I know what you guys are like. I know what you're like. I bet you could hardly wait to go somewhere and have a shot. You would like a shot, wouldn't you? Thinking of us as drug addicts. And Rocky goes, no thanks, sir, I don't drink.
And what was the policeman's response?
About his saying it and the way he said it, the guy wound things down and left us. I mean, he didn't immediately get up and go, oh, okay, well, go on your... But that was the turning point. It was Rocky saying that in the most innocent way possible that was the turning point.
So talk about presence of mind.
Rocky had that. He had not just the presence, but the sweetness. He would be so innocent. And he still does it to this day. I have to tell you a story that just happened not that long ago that Sumner told me about, and it's so Rocky. But first I have to say that the thing Rocky was most famous for in our group, the most famous thing he did was something that we called Rocky's safety devices. Rocky had what we called safety devices. Something is awful happening. 2 people are locked in anger and about to bite each other's heads off. Or someone is pressuring, causing problems. Or something dreadful is about to happen. Or there's a fight. Or whatever it is. If it's electricity in the air, if there's an emotional charge, Rocky says the perfect words, and it doesn't even have to be a lot of words, just a few quick words. And all of a sudden we laugh, and everybody's safe again. We're wondering what the heck we were getting all worked up about. We are totally back to a normal, natural, comfortable position with each other, and he can do it at the drop of a hat. I've never seen anything like that in my whole life. And he can also criticize you in such a way that you love him for it. I often tell the fact that I've only known of 3 people in my whole life who have the gift to insult you in such a way that you thank them for it. I understand that Oscar Wilde had the skill of stabbing you without drawing blood. No blood was ever drawn. And my son has the same thing. My son can tell me some horrible home truth that if anybody else told me, there would be fighting. And my son, Roland, can do that and never draw blood. And Rocky never draws blood. Never did. He could say something that you simply wouldn't tolerate from anyone else. And the recent example was he was up on some cliffside or mountainside or something of that sort, which Rocky loves to do. He used to wake me up in the middle of the night and take me up to look at some mountain. And he was with friends, good friends, and they were pressuring him to go out to the edge of this cliff or precipice. And Rocky did not want to go to the edge of the cliff or precipice. He didn't feel safe enough to do that. And they were beginning to call his manhood in question and all sorts of other things if he didn't go out there. And it was they couldn't back down. One friend in particular could not back down unless he got Rocky out to the edge, and Rocky did not wish to go out to the edge. So finally Rocky said and as Sumner told me, it was that same sweet voice that Rocky always uses in that kind of a situation. Rocky said, "You know, the next time somebody tries to make me do something that I don't want to do, I'll remember you. I'll remember you."
When was the last time you spoke with Rocky?
It's been a number of years. A great number of years. Oh, I have to tell you something about Rocky the Ghetto and his safety devices. This is my other story that I love to tell.
Oh, wonderful.
We were in the ghetto one time, and it was Powell St. John, and Janis Joplin, and Lenny Wiggins, and Tommy Hall, and Clementine Hall, and Rocky Erickson, and Stacy, all of us in the ghetto, sitting back, talking about what we were going to do great with our life. And Tommy says, "Well, I don't know exactly what," because the band was just barely beginning to form. I mean, it was like minutes before. Tommy said, "Well, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life, but I think it's going to be something to do with poetry or something like that, but I don't know what it is. But I know I'm going to make my mark. I'm not that interested in fame, but I bet you I'm going to be famous." And Rocky said, "Well, I know what I'm going to be. I'm going to be famous as a singer, and I'm going to make my mark as a singer. I know that now." Although Rocky, incidentally, all of the Elevators were great artists in paint. They were really, really fine. Rocky was a very fine artist. Stacy, very fine artist. Tommy, wonderful cartoonist. I am, too. I mean, I don't paint, but I draw. Anyway, and I was saying, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe poetry, too. Not like Tommy's, but different. Tommy was saying, well, I think I'm going to be maybe a great philosopher. Powell St. John is going, well, I think with me it's probably either going to be the harmonica or the art, but I know I'm going to make my mark. And Janice was going, well, I really am believing now, finally, that I'm going to be a singer, and I'm going to, if I have fame or notoriety, it's going to be through singing. I swear to you, every one of us was talking about the great things we were going to do, and there was one other person there, and I do not remember his name, but he couldn't stand it any longer. It bothered him so much that we were saying that. And he said, you know what? 20 years from now, you jerks are still going to be sitting in this stupid courtyard at the ghetto, still talking about all the great things that you're going to do someday, and you'll just have flies landing all over you. You'll just be drawing flies, and you're never going to get this bullshit that you're saying you're going to get. And we were all shocked, and temporarily we were all really knocked down. I mean, we went, yeah, I guess that was stupid of us, wasn't it? You know, we all felt that really brought us down, because we were flying high thinking all these wonderful things that we were going to do.
Was this like on psychedelics at the time, or were you just...
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But this guy said, what do you think the chances are that any of you are ever going to do anything? 20 years from now, you'll still be sitting here drooling. You'll be 20 years old and you'll be sitting here drooling and talking about the great things you're going to do. He really put us down badly, and here's where Rocky came in. Rocky looked straight at him and he said, man, it's not going to take 20 years. I'll give it 1 or 2 years from now, he said. And when that 1 or 2 years have passed, he said, we're going to be laughing ourselves sick at you and your stupid fly theory.
Too bad we don't remember this man's name.
I know, because he should go down in infamy, shouldn't he? Because he was wrong about every single one of us. Pal St. John headed up Earth Mother. You know, every single person in that courtyard who had said what they'd said made some kind of a mark. I remember reading in either Variety or Downbeat, I think it was Variety, saying that Clementine Hall was the most promising young lyricist of the year. I mean, I was the one that had the least chance of ever.
You know, there's a story about the ghetto.
What?
There's a story about the ghetto, about one particular room that perhaps is the one that Pal St. John was inhabiting at the time, where everyone who had ever been there or lived there ended up becoming extremely artistic, you know, and coming up with all sorts of manifestations of it, to the point of their thinking it was haunted.
Yes.
What do you think about that now?
Exactly. There was a sign over the doorway. He had a sign that said the ballroom. But that was because he was using that in the vernacular for balling girls. But yes,